Hey everyone, it's Tom here with Travel Economics, and I hope you're all having a fantastic day today. So, you're thinking about becoming a digital nomad, or you're already a digital nomad and you're wondering where your next destination should be. Well, I've been a full-time digital nomad more or less for the last 5+ years, and in that time, I've lived and worked remotely in dozens of countries across 6 continents. And that's why in today's video, I'm sharing 7 of the best and cheapest digital nomad destinations you should definitely have on your radar. Now, these are going to include countries with a low cost of living, but also great internet, nomad communities, and plenty of cultural elements for you to enjoy. Also, stay tuned because a couple of these countries aren't exactly the most popular digital nomad countries out there or as well known, but they're ones I've really enjoyed. And at the end of the video, I'll be covering some crucial information about visas, the whole digital nomad process, and how you can maximize your time as a digital nomad and your enjoyment. You don't want to miss it. Let's get to it. Okay guys, so starting off with the first best and cheapest destination for digital nomads in this video is Mexico. Now, Mexico has really been a long time popular destination for nomads, especially nomads from North America. And it's also a country I've visited plenty of times and have spent a lot of time working remotely from. Now, right off of the bat, Mexico is ideal because you can get a 180-day tourist visa on arrival from many countries, which is more than enough time for many nomads, especially nomads who just want to escape the winter for a couple of months. Mexico is also a massive country with amazing culture, great food, and great people, and there are so many different areas to explore, so you can kind of choose your own adventure. For example, there are areas like Tulum and Playa del Carmen and Cancun, so this is where you'll find, the beach and party scene, more of the influencer type crowd if that's for you. Lots of nomads from North America, but also a few from Europe. Now, I've spent plenty of time in this area. It's a little crowded for my tastes, and I'm not so into the party scene as I used to be when I was younger, but again, there are plenty of affordable Airbnbs. You won't have any issues with Wi-Fi. Lots of cafes you can work from, and plenty of remote workers. There's also some fun nature and historical sites to see around here. I mean, you can go to the cenotes, you can go to Chichen Itza. There's a lot of different places for you to explore around here that are very, very cool. Now, switching to the other coast, you have areas like Puerto Vallarta. So this is a resort town on Mexico's Pacific coast, and it's another area with a huge expat community and many nomads, and it's certainly more laid back and chill than areas like Cancun. But again, Mexico is a huge country with so much to offer, and there are other hubs emerging as well, like Oaxaca. So this city and state in Mexico is emerging as a nomad hub for several reasons. Firstly, it's a major cultural hub with a lot of amazing history and food within Mexico. Oaxaca City also has plenty of nomads, tons of cafes and places to work from. There's co-working spaces too. And while rent isn't necessarily the cheapest, you can find some deals even on platforms like Airbnb, and there's also cheaper local renting options or cheaper options if you share a place with some friends. Overall, Mexico is a very tourist-friendly place. The visa is great and it's very easy to get set up there as a nomad. And if you're working North American hours and you don't want to disturb your time zone, Mexico is a no-brainer. Alright guys, and the second best destination for digital nomads is South Africa. Now let me just start out by saying that I can already see the flack I'm going to get for recommending South Africa. I can see the comments already complaining that this is a bad recommendation for nomads, but personally this has been my all-time favorite digital nomad destination, which is why I'm covering it in this video. Now really there are 2 main drawbacks to South Africa that I'll cover first, and probably why some people would complain that I'm including it in this video. The first would just be that many regions and cities in South Africa aren't the safest in the world. In fact, they rank somewhat low in terms of safety. And the second issue would be that South Africa has issues with its power grid and electricity. So in many regions and cities, there are actual scheduled blackout times called load shedding where you do not have electricity or even internet access sometimes. However, I spent about a month and a half living in Cape Town and the surrounding areas, and like I said, it was my favorite digital nomad destination so far. I'm planning on going back. It was an amazing area to live in and work from, and I'll explain why. And so first off, in South Africa, one of the advantages is the cost of living. The rand isn't the strongest currency out there, so if you're on a US or European salary, you can probably have a very high quality of life in a city like Cape Town without spending a fortune. There's also loads of affordable rentals, lots of shared housing, hostels, and all kinds of options. Food is also fairly inexpensive, and the cuisine there is fantastic. I mean, you have barbecue, you have great seafood, you have restaurants serving all kinds of cuisine. It's a very good food scene that not a lot of people know about, and there's also a wine region nearby that is pretty fantastic. Overall, I think you can live quite comfortably in an area like Cape Town on about $1,500 to $2,000 per month, and that will get you a very high quality of living. On top of that, one of my favorite things about living and working in Cape Town and the surrounding areas was just the nomad community that's there and the fact that you meet people from all over the world. I also found it incredibly easy to meet other people who wanted to do cool things. For example, I made some very good friends and we would go on hiking trips or surfing trips. We had nights out together. We even went to a cottage for a weekend together and spent a bunch of time in some different areas. Not to mention, being in South Africa, you can see incredible wildlife. You can go on safaris. Again, the hiking and surfing is out of this world. There's really so much to offer and so much to do in that country, and the nomad scene is growing and is already there. Now, yes, cities like Cape Town in particular aren't the safest, but at least in my experience, if you're with a group of people or you stay with a group of people or make sure the activities you do aren't solo, you probably won't have any issues. And like any other major city in the world, if you don't walk alone at night and walk into sketchy areas, you should be fine. Again, I was totally fine. I spent a month and a half there. I didn't feel unsafe. Things felt okay. Now, as for the power issues and load shedding, this is definitely a risk for digital nomads, but I did find a workaround and other people have done this as well. But essentially, if you stay in accommodations that are near hospitals or government buildings, you basically won't experience load shedding because buildings on those power grids aren't impacted typically. This is what I did. I stayed in an Airbnb in the downtown area. I never had load shedding. My power and internet were totally fine. No issues with my work. A lot of accommodations are also getting backup generators, or they will say in the listing if they're impacted by load shedding or not. So there are workarounds if you do a little bit of digging. But yeah, overall, it's not the most popular recommended digital nomad destination, but South Africa, in particular, Cape Town, has really been one of my favorites. And on top of that, you can usually get a 90-day tourist visa on arrival and then extend it another 90 days pretty easily. So it's also fairly friendly that way. All right, guys, and the third digital nomad destination I wanted to cover is Turkey. And really, this is another destination that's super popular for travel, but it doesn't always find its way on the top of digital nomad lists. Now, Turkey did launch a digital nomad visa in 2024 that allows recipients to live and work in the country for up to 1 year, with the option for renewal via a resident permit. Now, this visa is currently available to citizens in 36 different countries. There are some rules. For example, you have to be between the ages of 21 and 55. You also have to be a college graduate, and applicants must be employed by a company outside of Turkey or self-employed and able to prove they earn at least $36,000 per year. There are some other rules, but again, it is very cool that Turkey and other countries are slowly adding digital nomad visas to basically attract more remote workers and talent to their country. Now, I'm not saying this visa is the only reason Turkey is a good digital nomad destination, and you could certainly get away with just going on a tourist visa if you wanted a shorter trip. But Turkey really has a lot going for it. And I mean, first of all, the cost of living is great, especially if you earn a currency like the euro or the pound or the US dollar, because the lira really hasn't been doing well. Turkey also has many amazing regions for you to explore. Istanbul is an obvious choice. You know, it's a huge city. There's amazing history and all kinds of cultural landmarks, excellent food, and it's not the most expensive place. I really enjoyed my brief time in Istanbul. It is a bit overwhelming. There's like 15 million people there, but again, it is definitely a cultural hub worth exploring. There's plenty of other great areas to explore as well that I've heard amazing things about. For example, you have regions like Bodrum or Izmir that are also amazing, and you can find plenty of beach towns and resorts that, again, aren't that expensive. Turkish food is also amazing in my opinion, and pretty much every Turkish person I've ever met have been very friendly, very hospitable, really nice people. And this country is also amazing for history buffs, again, just because of the sheer amount of history and cultural landmarks you have to explore. All right, guys, and the fourth destination that should be on your digital nomad list is Colombia. Now, I've actually covered Colombia in my video on cheap destinations to live on $1,000 per month, so I'll put that in the card above. And I love Colombia. I've been 3 times. It's actually my first true digital nomad destination, so I have a bit of a soft spot for it. And I think the country has a lot of things going for it. For one, there are plenty of fairly affordable and also fun areas for you to explore. Medellin is one of the most popular, and I've lived here for months at a time. There's a great climate, tons of nomads from all over the world, kind of affordable rentals, and co-working spaces and cafes in many nomad-friendly neighborhoods. There's also amazing nature in Medellin and also just throughout the country as well. Colombia is really one of the most biodiverse places on earth. And so again, if you're a fan of hiking or nature or getting out there and, exploring nature a little bit, it is a wonderful country. Bogota, the capital city, is also popular for nomads. A lot of my friends also spent more time around Santa Marta or Barranquilla as well for some time by the water. Personally, I enjoyed Medellin and Cartagena quite a bit. I also enjoyed some of the smaller towns outside of these cities where it's a little bit less hectic and you get more nature time. And yeah, I really like the fact that you find nomads from all over the world. The infrastructure is good. You can find decent Wi-Fi and co-working spaces. I never really had any issues working from there. Now, I will say I saw comments in my $1,000 a month video that Colombia is not that safe and that people shouldn't go there and that it was a bad recommendation on my part. So I'll address that really quickly. And first off, let me just say that like living in any different country or going to a different city that you don't know, staying in a group and practicing some common sense really goes a long way in keeping you safe. On top of that, a lot of the stories you read about people getting into trouble in cities like Medellin, for example, usually involve the party scene. You know, you'll see headlines like, oh, tourists robbed in Medellin, or tourist goes to nightclub and gets in trouble and gets robbed, or whatever, you know, these kind of headlines. And then you read the story and it's like, sure, some 50-something-year-old guy went to his hotel with an 18-year-old Colombian woman and is surprised he got drugged and all his stuff was stolen. I'm generalizing here, but again, it's a decently safe place. It's improved a lot in recent years, at least in my experience and from what I've read. And if you practice common sense, you don't wear expensive things, you're not too flashy, I think you should be okay. That said, there have been some reports of things like muggings in broad daylight or people running into cafes and snatching people's wallets or laptops. So I'm not saying it is the safest place on earth. Don't take my word for that. Don't put words in my mouth. But again, I've had wonderful experiences in Colombia. Plenty of nomads I know have as well. So I'm putting it on this list. I might get some flack for it, but I think it's a wonderful country worth considering. All right, guys, and the fifth country I wanted to include on this list of the best and cheapest places for nomads is Thailand. Now again, this really isn't that surprising, and Thailand has been a digital nomad hotspot for years, but that's for plenty of good reasons. Now, I actually spent about 2 months in Thailand a couple of years ago working remotely from there, and by far one of the main advantages is just that you have so many regions to choose from that are just packed with nomads. For example, you have Chiang Mai, which is already a huge nomad hotspot. There's super cheap rentals and people from all over the world. You'll find cafes and co-working spaces everywhere, and it's super easy to meet people, and there's all kinds of nomad meetups and events. You also have areas like Phuket, so this is mostly where I stayed because I wanted a cheap, kind of laid-back beach vibe, and there's so many affordable apartments and homes around Phuket. I mean, I was renting a pretty amazing apartment for about $600 per month, and it was set and the Wi-Fi was blazing fast. Food is also very cheap in Thailand, and what's nice is you can find amazing restaurant meals or family cooked meals or really good street food for really not that much money at all. There's also plenty of fun excursions, from snorkeling to checking out temples to visiting the elephants. There are lots of things to do in Thailand, lots of events, lots of meetups, and you can pretty much always find a group of nomads who are willing to go on some kind of adventure. Now, many countries can also get a 60-day visa upon arrival in Thailand and then extend for another 30 days. So again, you can go for 2 to 3 months fairly easily. Thailand has also announced a digital nomad visa called the Destination Thailand Visa, or DTV. So to apply, you have to be 20 or older, and you have to have a minimum financial capability of about $13,600 US. The visa is for 6 months with the possibility to extend 6 months at a time for a total of 5 years. Now, this visa is actually very new, and so there's not that much information online about it, and it seems a little bit confusing. But what's crazy is that if you look on Reddit, there are threads of people saying they've applied for this visa and gotten approval in like a week or two. This definitely makes it even easier to live in Thailand as a nomad, so you don't have to border run or do the tourist visa and then leave and come back. So it's great news. And between the cost of living and the huge nomad community, it really should be on everyone's list. All right, guys, and coming in at number 6 on this list of the best destinations for digital nomads is Indonesia. And really, Indonesia is similar to Thailand for digital nomads in the sense that it is highly affordable and there's already a booming digital nomad scene there. So it's kind of easy to walk into. Now, I also spent some time here after living in Thailand for a little bit. I was in Bali or around Bali, which is again one of the main nomad hubs there. It's a little cliche, but I enjoyed my time there and I had no issues working remotely from Indonesia. Now, I didn't enjoy it as much as Thailand, and that was predominantly because it was so crowded, especially if you stay right in Bali and you're just kind of amidst the whole influencer scene and digital nomad scene there. It gets a little bit crowded. However, there are tons of other areas to explore besides Bali that you could consider. For example, there's Denpasar, you could also consider Lombok, there's also Jakarta, and you can find plenty of co-working spaces and nomad-friendly areas in these cities and regions. And one thing I'll also say about areas like Bali or, the nomad scene in places like like Indonesia is that despite the crowds, I did find it very energizing. I mean, you meet people from all over the world, but you also meet people who are involved in startups or interesting projects. You see people working in cafes late into the night, and there's kind of a buzz and a bit of a, interesting nomad culture there that I enjoyed. Indonesia is also amazing for surfing and relaxing beaches. You can find cheap rentals in many cities or even get a villa with some friends without spending a fortune. Now again, personally, I preferred Thailand quite a bit more than Indonesia, but it is a popular digital nomad destination for several reasons, so I wanted to include it in this video. Alright guys, and the seventh and final digital nomad destination I wanted to cover in this video really quickly is Argentina. Now this is another country that's slowly getting added to more digital nomad lists and is kind of becoming more popular as the years go on. Cities like Buenos Aires are becoming super popular for nomads, and it's really an international hub with tons of people from all over South America, but also the rest of the world. Argentina also has a digital nomad visa that was announced back in 2022. So this visa is valid for 180 days and it's renewable for an additional 180 days. So again, it's pretty easy to spend a decent amount of time there. Now in terms of living costs, Argentina has had massive issues with inflation over the last couple of years. But you can find plenty of realistic budget breakdowns on forums like Reddit, with people explaining how they're living very well on about $1,500 to $2,000 a month in places like Buenos Aires. You can find many rentals for about $550 to $800 per month. Food isn't that expensive, and the nomads I've met who have gone there have really enjoyed the nomad scene and language exchanges and meeting people from all over the world. Anyways guys, that does it for 7 of the best and cheapest digital nomad destinations you should have on your bucket list. Now really quickly, I want to mention some honorable mentions that didn't quite make the cut just so this video wasn't over 30 minutes long, but are also great countries you could consider. First up, there's Vietnam, which is also immensely affordable, and places like Da Nang are super popular and cheap for nomads and are great if you want to live by the beach. Next up, you have Portugal, which again became super popular because of its nomad visa and cost of living. Places like Lisbon are getting much more expensive now, but you can still find cheap places to live in Portugal if you're willing to stay away from the super touristy areas. And finally, you have the Philippines, which is one of the cheapest nomad destinations out there. You can find super cheap rent, reliable Wi-Fi, and people working online are nomads and expats from all over the world. Now, hopefully some of the countries and cities I've covered in this video inspire you to begin planning your next digital nomad journey. And really quickly, just to wrap up the video, I'm going to share some tips and tricks just regarding the digital nomad visa process and also how to maximize your enjoyment once you pick a country to go to. And really my first recommendation would just be to join nomad or expat groups on Facebook and WhatsApp for the country you're going to. In my experience, this has been one of the best ways to firstly ask questions if there's anything you're unsure about, but also to meet like-minded people and to know about events going on in the cities you're going to so you can meet some people and have some fun. And my second tip is kind of talking about digital nomad visas and the whole visa process. And that tip is really to not stress so much about the digital nomad visa process to the point that you never travel. Pretty much every person I've met, and including myself over the last 5+ years, have not really gone for the digital nomad visas. We've basically gone for tourist visas, extended those visas, and then border hopped and returned if we wanted to stay in that country for a longer period of time. Digital nomad visas might sound great on paper, but oftentimes they just require more work and effort, and they're just a way for the government to tax you on your income. Now, personally, I don't like paying taxes in more areas than I have to, so I prefer to coast on a tourist visa, extend that visa, border hop, and all of that good stuff. Now, to some people, this seems unethical because they're arguing that you're living in a country, you're using its infrastructure for months at a time, and you're not paying taxes, and you're also lying about working there. Now for me, I argue that nomads stimulate the local economy enough with spending, tipping, tourism jobs, etc. So I'm not going to pay another government taxes while working for clients who aren't even from that country. Again, you might disagree with me, and if you think you should get a digital nomad visa to live like a digital nomad visa, by all means go down that path. But I have met a lot of people who are kind of freaked out as first-time nomads. They think they need this visa and they can't just go on a tourist visa, and they end up never traveling because they're spending so much time thinking about visas, it kind of scares them away from the whole thing. Really, my ultimate tip here is to go somewhere quickly on a tourist visa, see if you like it, and if you want to stay for longer, like months or even years at a time, look into permanent residency, look into the digital nomad options, and take it from there. And also guys, really quickly, my third and really quick tip would just be to get some kind of travel insurance for the country you're going to. It really doesn't have to be that expensive. You can use companies like Safety Wing or World Nomads, and it just gets you that bit of peace of mind to cover you in case something happens. Also, check your credit card when you book accommodations or flights, because you might actually have things like trip cancellation insurance or some medical coverage or lost luggage insurance or something like that as part of your credit card. So take advantage of your perks. Anyways, guys, that does it for some of my favorite and best digital nomad destinations you can consider, as well as some tips for getting started. You know, it can seem intimidating and daunting, and I remember planning my first digital nomad trips and it seemed like the whole world was open and it was kind of scary in a way to pick a country to go to. Ultimately, you can't start small. You can go to a different state or a neighboring country and work from there for a little bit and then slowly branch out and explore more of the world as you gain some confidence. This is honestly what I did. I started in Florida, I ended up in Colombia, and then over the next 5 to 6 years, I went to 6 different continents, explored a bunch of different countries, and don't really plan on slowing down anytime soon. As long as you keep an open mind, you treat it like an adventure, and you plan accordingly, you can definitely have an amazing life as a digital nomad. That really does it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day and week. I'll catch you guys in the next one.